Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate on the Up, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the real estate world in Orlando. I'm your host, Kyle Madorin, and on this show, we're all about pulling back the curtain with the unfiltered truth about real estate. We're not just here to sell houses. We're here to provide concierge-style service because everyone loves being treated like a VIP. This podcast is your go-to resource for transparency, integrity, and the knowledge you need to make smarter real estate decisions. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a first-time home buyer, we've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready to move up in the world of real estate. It's time for Real Estate on the Up. Today on Real Estate on the Up, I'm sitting down with someone who blends two worlds most buyers and sellers rarely get in one package: elite real estate expertise and legal intelligence. Guillermo Perez is a luxury real estate advisor with Real Broker, serving clients across both Florida and New York. Over the past 5 years, he's guided primary and investment buyers throughout Central Florida, bringing a level of strategic clarity that sets him apart. Before stepping into real estate, Guillermo worked as a trial court staff attorney. That background shows up in every negotiation he touches. He sees the risks others miss, translates dense contractual language into human speak, and helps clients move forward with confidence instead of confusion. Whether you're curious about the differences between the Florida and New York markets, the evolving definition of luxury service, or how legal insight is becoming a real edge for today's buyers and sellers, this conversation is going to deliver. So let's get into it. Guillermo Perez, welcome to Real Estate on the Up.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for having me on the Real Estate on the Up podcast, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Great. It's a pleasure to have you. Let's get started by learning a little bit about your background because it is very unique. What brought you into the world of real estate?
Thank you. So, I really got into this not in the clearest, most fastest way. It took a while. Growing up, I didn't really know that many people that owned homes, because I was from New York. Sometimes you don't have the need to own a home and other times you can't afford it because it's so expensive. So I didn't really know this was a thing or a job until I got into, I learned from the Robert Kawasaki convention or class that he had in Manhattan. It was just this random thing. It was like, oh, come for this free class. I was like, oh, free? Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll do that. So I went to the free one, and then there was an upsell. They're like, hey, for $300 you get 3 days. So I was like, okay, let me try this. And so I did it. I took a buddy of mine, and that's when I first learned about the concept of, buying homes on leverage with a mortgage. And I didn't understand. I'm like, why would somebody want to use debt on a house if you're going to be in debt? And then I learned about the concept of, I guess, appreciation and why you want to do that. So that's how I got started. And then I never wanted to be a salesperson. I never sought that. Like, I don't know if you read the book, The Death of a Salesman.
Yes, I sure have. Yeah.
I read that in college and community college, and I was like, oh, heck no. Like, if this is going to be my life, then, I'm not up for it. But, that's a very, misunderstanding. And nowadays, people really still have that idea of a salesperson. And, so after that happened, I got into real estate by a buddy of mine named Mark Toro. Shout out to Mark Toro. He worked at corporate at Compass, actually.
Oh.
And before that, I think he was at NetSeeker, but he got into it because of, Ryan Serhant. So I learned that, being a real estate agent was a thing. And my first exposure to actually doing a real estate transaction was when I moved from New York to Florida with my dad. I helped him with the transaction with the assistance of another real estate agent, and he was phenomenal. Like, I didn't know how this guy learned his trade. He was great with people. He was charismatic. He was funny. He was diligent with his paperwork. If you needed a guy, he knew a guy. Like, we had a bunch of, issues with the property. He knew the perfect person to help us with at a discount. And I just loved it. I thought it was just so amazing how, there's a job out there where you can, meet people, help them, buy their home, which is, considered the American dream. And
Sure.
that's how I got into it. I'm like, maybe I can do this. Let me give it a try. So, COVID happened, recently graduated from college, didn't have, a stable job. And, everybody was basically at the house. And I'm like, I have nothing else better to do. Let me just take my 2-week course, take the exam, and see if I could really do this.
Nice. Now, your journey came kind of a weird direction though, because you went into law then after you're licensed as an agent. So how did that come about?
Yeah, so funny enough, I always had a goal to learn more about contracts, and I had this like I don't know if it was caution or paranoia or fear about contracts because of the, the music industry background that I have. But I wanted to understand, what this world of the legal field is really all about. So I wanted to, in a way, confront my, fears or worries. So I went to law school to really seek the truth about, how the world works, at least in the US. And yeah, so that was like a personal goal of mine. Other people didn't really understand it because it was almost like I was, going in a different direction, first music, then real estate, now law. But it really just all came together in the end. And I'm glad it worked out the way it did.
Yeah,
Uh,
one thing kind of led into another, which is interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
And it unfolded in such a way where you have a background now that is so unique. I don't know many agents. I only know one other agent who also has a law degree. So this is a really interesting combination of talents that you have. So
Thank you.
how does your legal background allow you to help customers with contractual mistakes that other consumers and many agents may overlook?
Yeah, I think going to law school really ingrains in your head that you don't only double check things, you triple check things, you quadruple check things, you do your research. In high school, when we're taught legal or at least research and writing, we don't think anything about it, right? We're like, oh, what is this class? Like, who likes to do that on their free time and all that stuff? But it's like, especially in the legal profession and the real estate profession, you come to realize and appreciate that research is really a way to prevent, really difficult mistakes that can really change your life or your customer's life, and it can help you become competent in certain areas because every deal is different, right? We don't know all of the information, and it's so important to really have access to that information, even the basic stuff, right? Like how a contract is formed, right? It's a offer, acceptance, consideration is what we learn in law school, and it's so basic, but there are nuances, right? Like, does it count if it's through an email and there's a name on the signature of the email? Does it count if it falls on a weekend and, all these different things, so it just gives you an extra layer of protection, it's just that's all it is really, and, in Florida, the cool thing about being an agent is you really don't need an attorney to, do a transaction with the contract,
Right.
so a lot of the pressure is on us, so what I hear from, agents in New York is like, "Man, like, you agents in Florida really know your stuff and you guys really earn, every dollar that you work for because in New York it is difficult, but after you get the commitment, through the LOI, you just send everything through the attorney and then they handle all the legal stuff."
Yeah, it's really interesting how different things are here in Florida. I've worked with a number of customers who've relocated from New York, and
Mhm.
I hear the same thing from them. Everyone has an attorney. The buyer has an attorney. The seller has an attorney. The title company attorney's there. The
Exactly.
lender might have an attorney. There's everyone's involved. So it is quite different here that you don't need all that representation. Where agents can take on a lot of that themselves through filling out contracts and helping navigate through a transaction. So, with your legal expertise, then I imagine that there's a lot of comfort and confidence that you can give to your customers. Can you give us some examples of ways that you help your customers during the course of a transaction that might be a little different than agents who don't have a law degree?
So one of the ways is, just the contract, how a contract is formed, right? A lot of the times things go back and forth. You're like, oh, did I miss an initial or did I send it in time? Is it, before 12 a.m.? It's just those things that you really think about or other issues when it comes to things that you can foresee on the property. Like, after the closing, there's nothing you can do, right? The, uh, the title company protects you with any issues with the title, and after the closing, there's nothing to protect you about the physical condition of the property unless, they withheld something, some information that was material.
And then you have to
Yeah.
prove that they knew it. You have to,
Yeah,
yeah, challenge
exactly,
them. Yeah,
exactly, and that's the worst,
yeah.
and, God forbid any of us will have to go through that. They always say, even with law, eventually you're gonna get one hiccup or one complaint that, goes to your license and then you just have to face it on, and if that hasn't happened, then you haven't been in the business long enough, right? So all we can ask for is just having the least amount of that, happen to us.
Yeah, it's great to have that knowledge to read through a contract, really understand the language, because that's something that consumers have a hard time with. And I mean, our contract is 13 pages long for a purchase agreement, so it's
Yeah.
a lot of boilerplate language in there that's
Yep.
legalese. So it's great to have someone like you to kind of cut through that and look at all the details. When you help customers locally, do you find that there is a change within the last few years with how buyers approach transactions because of the shifting marketplace?
Yes. When you say shifting marketplace, do you mean like you know, do you mean like the NAR settlement or the actual?
There's been a lot of changes, yeah. So
Yeah.
that is certainly a big change. Also, the marketplace in general, market conditions are much different now than they were a few years ago, where
Yeah.
now it's really more of a
Yep.
buyer's market at the moment.
It's honestly, I love it. Like, it's amazing. I know a lot of the seasoned agents in COVID really enjoyed that moment in time because, you had all the sellers in there in your what is it called? In your funnel, right? Just ready to sell, ready to make a transaction, and you had all the leverage. It was a very crazy time. I can't even believe that I did a transaction during that time because it was just so insane, right?
Yeah,
If
it
you
was.
you would have to be lucky to come across an agent that was genuine, that wasn't just trying to, get the highest and best price just because. And I was blessed enough to have an agent that was very empathetic, walked me through everything. That first transaction was scary. I'm not gonna lie, 'cause but she was very kind. I've had enough conversations with enough agents to know that this was gonna end well, and, I talked with my broker and stuff. But, yeah, they were asking for, no contingencies, right? No appraisal, no inspection. It was just crazy, $50,000 above asking. It was just so crazy, buying the properties sight unseen.
Right.
And I was not willing to do that, for a
Right.
couple of my clients, and I lost a couple deals, right? That hindsight, they would have made some money, sure, because, valuations went up, but, now it's amazing for the buyers, right? For the sellers, if you bought within the last couple years, I think within 2022 to now, you're gonna have a lot of difficult conversations, right? Some of them are selling at a loss or they're breaking even, or they have to come to the closing table with a few thousand, dollars if they are breaking even. But for the buyers, it's amazing for the buyers because they can literally ask, not to give out too much to the audience because every deal is different. But what I've been seeing is that you can have a conversation now, right? You're not being left on red. Like the deal doesn't, just go out to somebody else without being a conversation. Now it's like, hey, this person increased by this amount, or do you want to, give a counter offer? Now there's credits, right? Closing credits that you can now put towards the closing. So you could ask for the maximum and see if they say yes, the maximum of 6%. If it's for FHA, now they're paying, even though, the NAR settlement happened, they're still paying, the buyer agents, commissions. You
Yeah, that's a very good point, and that's something not a lot of people realize because there's in my opinion, what the media tells people, what you hear and see on TV and newspapers and whatnot, read online, and then you've got what's really happening in
Mhm.
the real estate world, and it varies state to state. Because market climate is very different in different parts of the country. So here in
Yeah,
Florida, we are definitely in a buyer's market, and so therefore, if you're a home buyer, this is a great time to jump in because you can ask for all that compensation to
yeah,
still be covered by the seller, and it will be on almost every transaction that I've dealt with. And closing cost assistance, like you're saying,
mhm,
you can make things very, very appealing as a buyer. And although interest rates are a little higher now, you can negotiate a deal that is very favorable. So that's something that I don't think you hear a lot about in the national media is what the climate's really like here in Central Florida.
yeah. And I think it's important for us to really get the word out, let the buyers know, if they can afford it now and that they're comfortable with what they're buying, they definitely should do it. And I realize there's also a lack of transparency as far as realtor to realtor because, let's say if you're a buyer's agent, the listing agent, it doesn't really have to tell you within full transparency how much I guess concessions is being offered to them. So like you can ask them, hey, like how much is the seller giving you? And they could say 2.5%. And then once you're at the closing table, you see they got, 3.5%, that extra half percent, and you're like, okay. So I guess through a couple transactions, I realized that that is also negotiable, and you don't really have to take everything at face value. And it really depends on the deal, right? If your client loves the property, you're just gonna do what's best for them. So, uh,
Yes.
yeah,
And I'm sure with your background, you love negotiating, and the fact that we have so many terms are negotiable now that weren't before with the commission structures, it,
yeah,
it really adds another a layer of being able to craft an offer and a contract in such a way that it is in your customer's best interest. It protects them, and it also gets them into home ownership with terms that they might not have realized were even possible. So I'm sure you see a lot of that.
yeah, yeah. It's awesome. I think negotiation is a really necessary thing because people feel like they get a deal,
Hmm.
right? Because they put in the work to, they give something, they get something back, and that's what I'm realizing is that, if there's not the back and forth, people have like a buyer's remorse because it happens so easy. They're like, "Did I really get the best deal? Did I really do the best that I could for this transaction?" So, uh,
Sure.
it's necessary.
Are you still seeing a lot of migration of people coming from out of state, working with buyers who are outside the state of Florida from New York or other places?
I still am. There's a shortage, right, on housing. New York is crazy with rents. I know one client of mine is paying $5,000 a month in rent, and they have a large sum saved up for a home, but because of interest rates, it's difficult to really afford a home, in the marketplace that they desire in Florida. So it's tough. I see a lot of people moving from New York, from Chicago, from California. I have one client that I'm working with right now that I will be working with in December that's moving from Chicago. And it's challenging, but it's if you do all the work up front, I realize, if you do all the hard work up front, you see a lot of properties, you narrow it down to, top five. If those don't work, you go to the next five until you land on a property. And if you really do a good job at filtering all the things they like and don't like, eventually they're gonna land on a property that they enjoy. And, no one travels to another state for no reason unless they're a serious buyer. Uh,
Motivated, yeah.
they're motivated after the trip is done. If they go back home without purchasing a property, they're going to feel like they wasted time, money. So that all those factors together really matters. And I think that's one of the reasons why it works. And, in Florida, still looks like you get a good deal because the homes in those, heavily populated areas are so expensive. And,
Are you still seeing that price is the main driving factor with people relocating to Florida? Or what are some of the other reasons that people are mentioning to you that they're still flocking here?
I think it's still price, but also is the lifestyle. A lot of people are tired of the weather. They're tired of, being so cooped up together and
Yeah.
congested. A lot of people that move here never had a backyard, never had a front yard.
Oh,
They
yeah.
never lived in a place that was bigger than 900 square feet. So over here, it looks like a deal when you buy a
Yeah,
house that's over 2,000 square feet,
that's true.
5 bedrooms. You get a backyard, front yard, you get a gated community. It's just their whole life has really changed by, just traveling and moving and, the weather's great. Um, it's much easier for people obviously that have remote jobs or if they land a job in Florida, that can pay for those expenses. But the beautiful thing about Florida is that there's really a house for almost everyone at every price point is what I learned. So, if you look hard enough, if you look in the right areas, if people are flexible enough, you will find a home here even if it's a starter home to begin with.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's important because, it's really about being in the market and, eventually with inflation and time, the rest of I guess the wealth will, build up with time.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's amazing to think about the Orlando metro area. And as you were saying, no matter what price point you're looking in, what type of property you want, there is a house for everyone. And you can find houses on the outskirts of the Orlando area where they're just starting to develop land that was very rural up until a few years ago. You can get a single family home for $300,000. There aren't many places you can do that around the country. So it's and live in a beautiful state with no state income tax and great weather, like you said. So certainly a lot of advantages there. all the way up though to tremendous luxury properties. I just saw that a home sold recently for $11 million in the Orlando area, just a gorgeous estate in Golden Oak, which is that
Yes.
Disney
Disney,
neighborhood,
all of it.
which is amazing. So there's certainly opportunity for everyone, no matter what type of lifestyle you're seeking and what you're looking for. So that was great that you highlighted that. The people that you're working with, are there certain parts of town that they tend to are center on with their searches, or what are you seeing in terms of where they're looking?
They're looking in, Boca Raton, um,
Ah,
Brickell, Winter
a lot of
Park.
South Florida moving down the coast that direction. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the luxury, top end, high end people are really in the South, but
Yeah.
also the people that really want a family lifestyle, like in Orlando. I always urge them to look into, Central Florida because it's just a nice balance between, like you said, metro and
Yeah.
suburb vibe. When you want to, have fun, you just drive to Orlando. It's not that far away. If you're living now with the highways to Winter Garden and, Lake Mary, which is a very corporate area, it's just awesome, right? You can live outside of the city and still enjoy the benefits of the city without being, too congested. So, yeah, those are
Absolutely.
the areas that I see them wanting to move to, and also those are the areas that I suggest. But yeah, that $11 million property you mentioned, it's just incredible to think that. I think I remember seeing that listing, and I just couldn't believe that that existed in this area where.
Right, in Orlando. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because
yeah,
you do think of Boca Raton, you think of Miami,
yeah.
those areas. But, we're starting to see a lot of growth in the luxury market here in Orlando, which is interesting. The other thing that we're seeing here in Orlando is a lot of growth in the retirement sector, the 55 and up communities, which did not exist until, less than 2 decades ago. And that's
Wow.
because I think the growth in the healthcare industry locally has really helped. Because if you're of retirement age, obviously, you want to be near a good medical facilities, hospitals, and doctors.
Mhm.
And so before we had that infrastructure here, that didn't really exist. So now we're seeing tremendous growth in that sector as well. So truly,
Yeah.
whether you're a first-time home buyer, whether you're looking for an unbelievably high-end luxury home, whether you're a retiree looking for a great, beautiful resort-style community, we have it all. So you got to come talk to Guillermo about moving down to to Central Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's awesome, like that class of people, that was made to protect them and to really, also make sure that they're not priced out in certain situations. I think that's one of the amazing things about Florida is that although, the laws are not as protective of tenants like New York City, they're really protective of the retirees and, making sure they're not priced out, whether it's with their taxes and, those kind of communities. And you're right, they are amazing. I do get a couple questions about, those communities and stuff. And it really depends on, what people can afford, what kind of lifestyle they want to have. Those communities really have a community within themselves. Like, I've
Right.
seen one recently,
Yeah.
I think
It
in
becomes
Mount.
it's like usually they're gated neighborhoods. So behind the
Yeah,
gates, it's like your own world out there. I mean, they
yeah,
have some amazing features, clubhouses and golf courses and pools and tennis courts and all kinds of clubs to join. And yeah,
yeah.
you're right. You're right. It becomes your own little society in there. So there's a large number of those communities that are really beautiful now, which we didn't have in years past. So if you're eyeing retirement, definitely Central Florida is, I think, one of the best values you can find compared to South Florida, where things are a bit more expensive. So, yeah,
Mhm.
definitely look here. Now, Guillermo, we have some agents who listen to the show, and especially agents who are younger, just getting started in the industry. And I know you're younger as well. So, based on your success and what's been working for you, what should agents really focus on as skill building to be able to become successful in this business?
I think just really, having a conversation with people and just, not only, it's tough because there's 2 sides, right? There's the competence side where you need to know what you're doing, and if you don't, that's okay. You could ask your broker, you could ask your team lead if you're on the team. You can ask your friend that got you into real estate that has more experience. You can search things up on YouTube. You have other courses. So the competence part is important as far as learning the ins and outs of, what it takes to be a realtor and, protect their client and look out for their best interest. And also, the paperwork as well, making sure the contract is correct because at the end of the day, that's what really matters. and just really learning about, communication skills, learning about networking, also promoting yourself. It's tough. I don't think a
We
lot
wear
of
many
people,
hats. Yeah, we
yeah,
there's a
we,
lot of yeah.
we wear too many hats. Like it's just insane. Like I really, commend you for having your own brokerage, your own team. Like I can imagine, what you go through to be able to balance all that out. It's just really crazy, what we have to do. But, it's part of the game. I would suggest that they focus on really, marketing themselves, telling everybody they know what they do, that they're an agent, and having a system really of system and processes of how they really get the word out to people, whether it's on social, mailing, cold calling, using their circle of influence, right? The people that they know. And it's a very slow burn in the beginning, especially if
Yeah.
you're not doing expired listings or for sale by owners. It's very slow in the beginning, but eventually, once you keep doing it, like I've been doing it for 5 years, the balls start to, flow, and then you get to get more sales. And, the more work you put into it, the faster, the sales come in. And it's a very unique field to be in. But, with social media, things are picking up. And I'm realizing now that building your brand is so important nowadays. But that being said, it doesn't mean that, that's the only thing you need. Like I know plenty of successful agents that are selling, 5 homes every month or more just from calling, right? Just
Right.
working their list, the circle of influence, just from referrals. So there's so many ways to do it. And I just I would just suggest people to just pick one and just stick with it. And if you can, add on others eventually.
That's great advice. The perseverance and knowing that, yeah, sometimes it takes a while to get those wheels turning, but once you got that momentum, it starts to kick in. It just takes a little while to get there and don't quit. Stick with it. And I think the ideas that you had about lead generation and making sure you're getting the word out there, so very important. So you have to be able to tell people who you are, what you do, and why you're good at it. I think that's something that agents need to remember. It's not all contracts, but when people do need contract help, it's great to have an agent like you who understands the paperwork better than anyone. So, Guillermo, for anyone listening who wants to get in touch with you and has additional questions, wants to reach out to you for real estate advice or assistance, what's the best way that they can reach you?
Sure, yeah. They can reach me at my Instagram. It's GPJ for Guillermo Perez Jr. Dot real estate. So if anyone's listening to this podcast a few months from now, thank you. I might change it to gpj.esq or gpj dot, some other thing, but for now, yeah, that's where they can reach me. And my phone number is 914-803-6496. So if you have any questions, about becoming an agent or selling or buying a home in New York or Florida or anywhere, I'm sure I know other agents that I can refer you to. And yeah, thank you for listening to us on this
Oh
podcast.
yeah, yeah. This is great. Thank you so much for your time, for coming on the show, and for sharing your expertise with us. I'm sure that people got a lot out of this today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Kyle, for inviting me to be on your podcast. And I'm so excited to see how it comes out. And hopefully we could work on a couple deals together in the Central Florida area.
You
And
can count on it.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All
thank you so
right.
much. I really appreciate you. And yeah, and say a great big thanks to your team as well.
Thank you so much. I will. Everybody, this was Guillermo Perez. Thank you all for tuning in today, for listening and joining us. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And please don't hesitate to reach out to Guillermo if there's any help you need in real estate in Central Florida or New York. Take care, everybody. We'll catch you next time on Real Estate on the Up.
Thank you.
As we conclude another eye-opening episode of Real Estate on the Up, I want to express my appreciation for joining us. Thank you for being a valuable part of the Real Estate on the Up community. Your time and engagement mean the world, so make sure you subscribe and leave a review. Your real estate goals are my priority, and my team and I are here to provide the personalized attention and service that have earned us high recognition. If you have questions, need guidance, or are ready to make a move, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm just a message away. I'm Kyle Madorin, one of Rate My Agent's top 100 in the United States, signing off. Until next time, take care and make those real estate dreams a reality.